Central Africa and the sixth largest on the African continent, offers investors a stable market growing at a rate of 5% annually. This isn't just a place to pause, it's a place to scale. Located at the heart of Africa, Kenya is an established and mature democracy with over $50 trillion in global market access and trade corridors connecting economies and people. Kenya offers scale, stability, and speed for global capital. From agriculture to apparel and leather manufacturing and much more, Kenya produces for the world. From our fertile lands to global shelves, Kenya feeds the world with quality and consistency, exporting tea, coffee, flowers, avocados, nuts, and herbs to every continent. From electric mobility, pharmaceuticals, to green innovation and technology, we are building the industries of tomorrow. Here, power is renewable, with over 93% green energy driving industry, cities, and sustainable growth. From smart buildings to eco-lodges to electric vehicles, Kenya is redefining sustainable living at scale. From all corners of our country to the region's capital, our road, rail, and air networks connect businesses to opportunities. This is Africa's Silicon Savannah, where technology powers inclusion and innovation drives growth. Fintech moves billions daily, with mobile money connecting people and driving businesses. Home to 85% of East Africa's tech startups, Kenya is the continent's digital gateway, ranked #1 in Africa on startup funding. At the Nairobi Securities Exchange, capital flows with confidence, fueling enterprise and new frontiers of opportunity. One of the best performing stock exchanges in Africa. Supported by a robust banking and financial ecosystem, Kenya is a regional financial hub on the continent. Across special economic zones and industrial parks with progressive fiscal benefits, opportunities scale fast. Invest in Kenya for clear incentives, investor protection, and a robust legal framework. Our greatest strength is our people, young, skilled, visionary. They are not waiting for the future. They are building it every day in every corner of our land. Home to more than 300 multinationals and growing, and the only United Nations headquarters in the global south, including UNEP, Kenya stands as the environmental capital of the world. We are predictable, competitive, and open for business. Kenya offers high quality of life, vibrant cities, world-class hospitality, and extraordinary natural landscapes. A place where global talent can live, work, and belong. Kenya is where Africa's industrial growth takes shape. If you are looking for scale, speed, certainty, and the gateway to Africa's fastest growing markets, invest in Kenya, because the future is already here.
KDC.
Along Kenya's shimmering coastline, where the ocean meets fertile land, a new economic thread is being woven: cotton. From the fields of Lamu to the global gateways of Mombasa, opportunity is rising. Rooted in soil, powered by industry, and carried across oceans. coastal region is emerging as a key frontier in Kenya's cotton revival. With its favorable climate and expansive arable land, it is quietly reclaiming its place in global textile supply chains. In Lamu alone, over 20,000 acres hold the potential to be placed under cotton cultivation, an agricultural transformation capable of reshaping livelihoods across generations. Here, cotton is more than a crop. It is a catalyst, linking rural farmers to industrial markets and tradition to innovation. At the heart of this transformation stands the gateway to the world, the port of Mombasa. As East Africa's busiest maritime hub, Mombasa connects Kenyan cotton to global textile markets, from Asia to Europe. Every bale exported carries not just fiber, but the promise of jobs, foreign exchange, and industrial growth. With strategic investment, the coastal cotton corridor can become a fully integrated value chain, anchored in production, processing, and export efficiency. Beyond the farm and the port lies the most powerful link in the chain: value addition. Inside manufacturing hubs at the EPZA, cotton is transformed into finished garments ready for global markets. But the opportunities extend further. The production of finished garments with zips, buttons, labels, and packaging materials represents a growing industrial frontier. Small components that power a massive apparel ecosystem. Each stitch, each accessory, each package adds value and creates jobs. From the cotton fields of Lamu to the docks of Mombasa, Kenya's coastal region is not just growing cotton, it is growing opportunity. This is a call to investors, manufacturers, and innovators to weave together agriculture, industry, and trade into one powerful value chain.
Kenya is open for business. Kenya is looking for partnerships with investors in the entire value chain. And we have special economic zones where they can also be able to set up their industries, get tax incentives. And also, given that we have various trade agreements across the world, from the US to China to Europe, and now we're working with India, it simply means that when you produce here, your access to markets across the world is guaranteed.
All right, thank you so much and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed your tea. I'm happy to see John Wendo, the CEO of Kenya Invest Kenya. You know, they rebranded, I'm still rebranding. Invest Kenya is right here. So that first video we saw, the CEO is right here, and you'll be having a panel later on. It's good to see you and welcome. We've had discussions here, and I think some of the questions that they may have, you will be able to answer on how we can open this pathway. So welcome back once again. As I said again, our tea is made from the highest altitude, so people take a lot, and so we don't rush them as much. Some people have said, I told you yesterday, there was someone who was saying the cup is too small. They have to take 4 to feel it. But we appreciate you for being here. So our next session is amazing. Why? Because yesterday, yes, as I said again, we talked a lot to you. Today, we want to as well hear from your end. And our moderators, I can see they're very set and ready to start us off. But feel free as one more time to engage with them so that at least we can get the most. The CEO of Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund, Victoria Sabula, and Jonas Tesfo, the founder and CEO of Pangea Accelerator, are our moderators for this session. And the session is about translating ocean strategies into now coherent investment pathways. It's getting practical here. Put your hands together for my moderators. A round of applause, please, as they come. Karibuni sana. Welcome. The floor is yours. I got a mic for you there. Just put it on that end. And even this one, just put it on that end. There you go. Excellent.
Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Very well.
Nice. Looking forward to having this session with you. My name is Jonas Tesfu. I'm one of the co-moderator here, together with Victoria.
Great. Thank you for joining this session. We hope that it will be a good sport and that every one of us is looking forward to engage and to play. I will actually have Jonas to introduce his organization. I will introduce the AECF and then we carry on from there.
Absolutely. So my name is Jonas Tesfu, founder of Pangaea Accelerator. We have worked with over 400 startups. We are a sector agnostic investor, meaning we can invest in all sectors, but we have a big interest in blue economy. One, because we have many investors from Norway, and including our lead investor that been working a lot within blue economy for the past 25 years. Second is that also we see a lot of opportunities within blue economy. 38 out of 38 of the African countries are coastal states, and 300 billion in revenue for the blue economy sector. We think that's only the start. So I think I stop there and hand it over to you, Victor.
And I am Victoria Sabula. I am the CEO of Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund, the AECF. We work across 26 countries in Africa, surfacing high-risk, innovative businesses that have potential for scale but struggle to access capital from commercial financiers. We have been at this for the last 17 years, banking on entrepreneurs and business models that are oriented towards rural and marginalized people. We believe, and strongly so, that there are gems that are poised for greatness, but their risk profile is not able to be attended to by commercial financiers. And our work is to be able to support them to navigate the difficult periods of early stage financing and get them to a place of unlocking commercial capital at scale. We have worked with over 650 businesses across the region, very specifically focusing on clean energy and agribusiness. We have been working in the blue economy over the last 4 years. It's been a steep learning curve, you know. I'm a lawyer by background, and I was just telling a colleague that I'd never imagined that I will meet a scientist and I have no idea about how to articulate ecosystem restoration. We are working on, you know, matters, nature solutions and all of those. And it's been very humbling, really, to get to understand the extent of possibilities that exist in our oceans as we have been working in the coast and also in the inland waters all the way in Lake Victoria in Kenya. So across Africa, we have made remarkable progress. Countries have developed blue economy strategies, articulated national ambitions, and built policy frameworks that reflect genuine commitment to harnessing our ocean resources. That is no small achievement. But today, we turn to the harder question: implementation. Strategy without investment is aspiration. Gap between a well-written national blue economy plan and a funded bankable project is where momentum is lost, and where too many good ideas quietly disappear and many investors are run out of the borders. In this room, we have all of you who have lived that gap from every side. Governments that have written the strategies, investors who have walked away, DFIs that have tried to bridge the difference, private sector actors who are still waiting for the conditions to be right. We are not here to present to each other, we are here to learn from each other. I'm going to ask a few questions. Jonas is going to ask a few questions. And we are looking for you to not answer with what you believe in principle, but with what you have actually experienced. So we are looking for authenticity. Somebody talked about greenwashing, so we are also not going to be experience washing in this session. For us, having worked across different markets, knowing that Kenya is looking at fisheries, aquaculture, maritime, transport, coastal tourism. Seychelles is looking at blue finance, marine conservation, sustainable fisheries, tourism. Every country has their ambition, right? Tanzania is looking at maritime trade, tourism, coastal conservation. Most recently, I had great conversations just around, artificial coral reefs and how PPPs will be able to support that over the course of time. Every government has ambitions, but these require to be translated into investments on the ground. So I'll start our first session and get to see where we are as far as experiencing or executing on the strategies that have actually been put in place by our different governments across the region. And my first question actually will speak to, if you have been in a room where in Blue Economy Strategy and Ocean Strategy was launched with great energy, where did you see the promise, right? What fell apart? Where did you see the promise? Like, as in, have you ever been in a place where you're able to say, I can be able to say, and when you look at me here, by the way, I'm a financier, so when I don't have the terminologies for blue economy matters, you know, I'll call on my colleague here, Cosmas, who interacts more with the sector. But I know Musk is here. I know other investors are here. It would just be nice to be able to hear who here has been in a place where you've identified with the ambition. You've seen it. Your heart has, you know, skipped a bit just because of how exciting it is. And then something fell apart. Are you able to share with us that? Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, hello. Hi, Jermaine. Yes, I thought where I think things were going well for quite some time were in our fishing boat retrofits. And I thought the investment vehicles that were involved were doing a great job at de-risking it. And unfortunately, you know, this was happening across like the United States for a while, across the Chesapeake Bay, where many fishermen were retrofitting their engines to be, you know, far more, you know, environmentally friendly. And this was going really well because we had, you know, people were able to come in, they were able to de-risk that investment through private-public partnerships. And unfortunately, that went away. So now, you know, you have a situation where the retrofits could still happen, but there's no incentives for them to do it because of the cost, right? So before, you know, they had a voucher, they were able to get it for like $5,000-$6,000. You know, not, you know, without any more government support or, you know, any sort of like investment there to sort of de-risk that capital, you know, they weren't able to continue that program. So that's somewhere I've sort of seen that happen.
And you are an entrepreneur?
Yes. So I have a company called Forge Blue, and we're mostly on the technology side.
Okay, then. So thanks for sharing that. And I'll park that for now. And wanting us to start from, you know, like where the people who have actually looked at national strategies, you know, when you hear a minister make a promise around investments in the port, right? You look very eager to share, sir. Which sector do you work from? So is there someone who has actually, in this room, who has been able to actually look at wanting to make investments in particular sector or has, and there has just been a disconnect between the execution, especially from the part of the public sector, on the promises that they have made? No, we have not been in rooms where the government and other ecosystem actors are making promises around what will change and what will be deployed. Okay. So thanks for sharing that particular perspective. Let's just really just open it to the room and just let us share experiences around where there have been a disconnect just between the realities of the potential that actually exist in our oceans and, you know, what ends up happening on the ground and what you would do differently.
My name is Uche Igwe. I'm from Nigeria. And yes, I have been in a room very recently where we were evaluating the promises of investment around blue economy. And we saw that very little had happened. Part of it is that very many people see blue economy, at least in Nigeria, as something new, as a new cliché, and people don't have, unfortunately, a shared understanding of blue economy, even those who have been doing blue economy. You see a situation where people who have been in the maritime sector for a very long time, they're asking this new thing. And the policy in Nigeria is robust, very ambitious, but then because there is no shared understanding of the pathway, both local investors and even those from outside are a bit reluctant. So yes, I've been there.
No shared understanding on the pathway, which are the most promising of value chains, of subsectors. What are we going to push for as the low-hanging fruit, and who is doing what across, the government functions really feeds disconnect and holds back the potential that exists. Nigeria's potential in the aquaculture sector is actually the best in the continent. Did you know that? Yes. Great. Let's hear other perspectives. What do we see? What do we see as a real opportunity? Where is there a disconnect?
Hello, everyone. My name is Abdallah Hussein, and I'm the director for Al Nasir Marine Enterprises. And I figured here in Kenya, I can speak of Kenya. So there's a big disconnect in terms of emerging sectors in blue economy. Most of investments have been looking at fisheries, maritime transportation, and all. But we have a lot of new trends that we are adopting, especially in emerging sectors. And when you're looking to bid now for work in that area, you'll find even now that the permits that are supposed to be in that emerging sectors do not even are not included. For example, commercial diving. It's an area. It's very broad here in Africa because there are a lot of ships that are having stops here in Mombasa and Dar es Salaam and all. But when you are looking to work with the ports, you might find that you are requested for a permit or a license in commercial diving, but you don't have that code for commercial diving in your permits. You only have for scuba diving. So where do you put commercial diving? That's my point on it, on policies. Thank you.
Sometimes the sectors grow faster than the policy environment that actually exists. And if the catching up doesn't happen, then that is lost opportunity. And it also is frustration. So people pivot. They go and find something that will feed them, and they leave the potential just sitting there because the environment that is meant to be facilitating the growth of that innovation does not exist.
Hello, my name is Ali Salat from East Africa Seaweeds. Following on the same policy issue, the government of Kenya currently is developing national seaweed policy. It is different from the fish. I want to categorize that. And we are in that space. It's an upcoming, not so popular, but a sector that can really change the livelihoods of the farmers along the coastal line. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, right? And sometimes it's just something that says that vanilla can't work. Like there is such uniqueness that comes with every value chain and every subsector within a broader sector. There is a hand I'm being led to here that has been raised for a while. Yes, please, and then we'll go back there, and then I turn it to Jonas.
Yes, I think it's still morning. Good morning. So I'm Felix Osok. I'm the Group CEO of the Aquaculture and Blue Economy Consortium, which is a company within the blue economy space, domiciled in Norway, but with operations here in Kenya. That is a fully integrated value chain that is from fish production or feeds. You have the agtech. And what you'd asked initially was, have you been in a room where you're wowed or seen things not really working and you feel like, I need to make a change or I need to do something? And for me, it's actually been the fragmentation in the aquaculture and blue economy space. In March, I was here. We held an event. And how do you position blue economy as a powerhouse in Kenya, reduce the fragmentation, bring players to work together and share? Number two, when we talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about enterprises within the space. There is actually a lot of capital in this space. But what we lack is competent capital and then projects that are investable. We talk about youth, but we don't talk with them. So we had a real case example in this conference, from fish deficit to aquaculture powerhouse, where we had school kids from secondary schools in the house talking and how they want to be engaged in the aquaculture and blue economy space. We brought industry players, government as well, and for me, my experience was actually different. Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute, credit to them, they actually got their hands dirty, doing the job, financing it as well together with us, and making it happen. But of course, before getting there, we had to really push and say, we need to talk together. Yes, you are regulators, Kenya Fisheries Services, but you will not be in a position to regulate if you don't understand the challenges that the players are facing. Again, bringing industry players together from Norway who understand the blue economy sector. We had the girls in aquaculture, Salmar, coming down. And within a couple of months, we actually have an investor readiness program supported by AGF, that is the African Guarantee Fund, together with 4 other industry players financing young people to be investable. So it's identifying the problem together and then working on it together. Thank you.
And I want, when Jonas takes a session, that you will give us the specifics, because it would be interesting actually to be able to really hear what is the structure of, the arrangement that is actually there between Norway and the local partners. What is that, knowledge transfer looking like? What is, when you look at these young people and young people-owned businesses, what is the type of capital that actually they are being readied for? Because then it gives us that, real on-ground experience to see what are the type of projects that are coming on the pipeline. I'll take that one as the last intervention for this question, and then yes.
Good morning. My name is Judy Tom from Coral Spirits. We are a marine excursions company from South Coast. So one of the opportunities we see in our business, daily business, is for women to get involved in actually driving the boats, working on board the vessels. But the disconnect that we find is that there's not enough maritime studies for women or even men. So when every year during our licensing, we are required to provide certificates for our captains, but we find that even most of them are not able to afford getting these studies. And there's only one college that provides us, which is Bandari College, and it's in Mombasa. Yet we have a very long coastline. So I think if the government can bridge that gap, that would be a very good opportunity to increase employment in the marine industry.
So the gap in the skills that are actually available to be able to take on the opportunity that exists in the vessels.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. I want to ask just one question and one answer before we transition. For the investors in the room, we are trying to talk here about the gap between the ambitions that we have and the investments that are. What deal have you walked away from and why? Anyone who's walked away from a deal? We keep talking about there is the strategies are in place. We know that it is a $1 billion economy across the region. But then why do we walk away from this? Anyone willing to answer that one? My colleague Cosmas will tell you that we had not too much money. We are a retailer of small ticket sizes at the AECF. I'll close here. And we had $7 million to offer to women-owned and women-led businesses across the Indian Ocean and the Lake Victoria Basin. It took us 3 times the time to actually get that money out the door than it otherwise would in our other primary sectors of agribusiness and energy. It was so hard for us to find to construct a unique portfolio. In fact, it is so aquaculture heavy, even as we speak, when we were looking for, businesses that were lending themselves to, for example, is in boat ownership, productive ownership for women. We wanted to do much more, but there wasn't just much. And the other thing that we saw is just so many of people who want to act as entrepreneurs and they are not. So you are looking for 400,000. It may be small for the DFI, but that's what we do. We give 400,000, 100,000, $1 million. You have not even done a turnover of 50,000, and you're choosing to hire your relatives from employee 1 to employee 5, with absolutely nothing else from actually technical expertise that's coming from elsewhere. But you want somebody to give you $1 million. So there's such a huge gap we see between sometimes the businesses that could really transform the sector and the, as in the size and the reality of their operations. I'll now turn it over to Jonas.
Thank you so much, Victoria. So the session is called Translating Ocean Strategies into Coherent Investment Pathway. Let me ask you, if I asked you, what is Kenya's ocean strategy? How many here could answer that question? Anybody? Tanzania? Oh, you could? No? Okay, no, sorry. Tanzania? Mozambique? Anybody? Madagascar? Mauritius? Problem number 1, right? What are the strategies? Which direction are we going? Second, do we have a tendency to follow what we say in this sector? Basically, talk is sweet, but action is sublime. Any thoughts on this? The reason I'm saying that is I also think that we have a tendency of saying the right things, but not actually doing them. Meaning, from a predictability standpoint for investment, it becomes difficult to predict. So strategies meeting action as a topic area. Now, to break this down into different topics, let me ask you, where is the biggest opportunity in the blue economy sector? So for those that see aquaculture as the biggest opportunity, who are you guys? Up with your hands. Okay, aquaculture. Anybody else? Oh, nice. Okay, there's a few. All right, port and shipping. Okay, a few hands, little bit. No, not too much. Okay, blue carbon. Nobody. One, okay. A few. All right, so let me ask you, where is the big opportunities? Blue tourism? Anybody? Blue tourism? No? A few? It's a lot of hands on this side, very little in the middle here. What do you want in the middle? Where's opportunities in blue economy? Let me focus on you guys. Anybody who wants to say something? Where is opportunity in the blue economy sector? We're talking about investment pathways, right? So let's be real about it. So we want to invest in blue economy. Many subsectors. Where would you put your money? Yes, gentlemen. think you're gonna get a mic here.
Yeah, thanks. The definition of blue economy obviously is critical here, but if you think widely, one of the areas that we've been thinking about is the whole area of urbanization around port cities and within the coastline, and industrialization as well along the coastline, linked, of course, to tourism and other sectors. Of course, aquaculture would come in, but if you look at the concept of, particularly on the continent, and if we look at Kenya here as an example, this whole corridor starting Mombasa, stretching to Kilifi,
Yep.
all the way into Vipingo, is becoming a corridor
Yep.
of investment. And it's also a corridor of migration, of human migration and urbanization. And when you get that, there's significant opportunities for investment along the coastline. If it's in real estate,
Yep.
it's in housing,
Yep.
it's also in urban infrastructure, roads, sanitation,
Exactly.
water. It's all along the coastline. So if you look at that as part of a blue economy transition,
Yeah.
because you have to have the infrastructure in place to manage people, you have to invest in that infrastructure, but that would then be linked into how you manage the blue economy resource, which is on the coast.
Exactly.
So we see significant opportunity there as the Economic Development and Investment Council for the coast region
Nice.
in structuring investments in a way linked to government planning, county planning,
Yeah.
that will facilitate much more investment on the coast.
I think it's a very interesting perspective. In general, when you speak about blue economy, very few mention urbanization, but we should, because 15 of the fastest growing cities in the world are in Africa. And obviously, many of those cities are at the coast. So when you're actually working with coastline, you can also do urban planning, right? And then combine it with maritime shipping, infrastructure, and that very few sectors in blue economy are happening on a silo. They're actually interconnected, right? Very good. Anybody else who has other opportunities? Where do you see the big opportunity areas? Do you want to say something? No? Let me ask you. Okay, let's ask here. All right. Where's your opportunity? Where would you put the money?
So I think there's a lot of, thank you very much. I think there's a lot of opportunities in marine genetic resources from ocean creatures, particularly for cosmetics and pharmaceuticals. So I think that's a big area of future research and commercialization.
I love that you said that. I've been having a lot of interesting topic areas about sea cucumber, for example. To be honest, I didn't know what sea cucumber was before. I had to Google it. But then when I looked into it, I realized that about 10% of the market value is eating it, and 90% is cosmetics. Imagine. And I think we have a lot of these sectors on the blue economy sector. So it's not so easy to understand where the market is, simply because if you look at the cosmetic industry, you're looking into Japan, South Korea, a lot happening in Southeast Asia, which is quite far away from, Western Indian Ocean. But there's a lot of opportunities if we can connect production with these market opportunities, for sure. So I 100% agree. Yeah, okay, you took it. All right, nice.
Thanks. I think one we haven't talked about is marine renewables, and I think certainly there's challenges in the current political environment, at least on the U.S. side, but I absolutely think with oil and gas challenges moving forward, offshore wind, and looking at other ways of generating energy locally is going to be really critically important.
Thank you for that. I agree. I think the Iran conflict has proven that to everybody. It made it obviously clear that we need to be more self-sufficient in energy. I think everybody here agrees. Maybe there's somebody who doesn't agree. Let me see. You agree or not? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we have a comment over there to the gentleman. Yes. That's it. Thank you for your good point. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I was not in agreement or disagreement, but
No, I know. I was just kidding. I was just kidding.
I thought I would contribute.
Yeah, please contribute.
Yeah. One of the safest ways in ocean strategies is to have your own vessels. Is to have your own vessels, just like the growth of Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Germany, Norway. They're all having vessels of different types. So for a country to invest in shipping, it's the best way to go, because all the cargoes will be directed towards that ship, and also the crew, who are the seafarers, will be trained there. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you so much for that. I think, again, full agreement. There were some interesting panels yesterday discussing trade and how we need to lower the cost of friction within trade, the cost of having boats waiting outside of Mombasa port, for example, and how much that cost. And if you had ports connected with rails and other infrastructure, how this now boosts trade in a very interesting way. So I think logistics, trade, port type shipping infrastructure, including boats, very interesting perspective. All right, we have to round up this part of it, but I will leave room for one more. In terms of, is there a subsector that we haven't mentioned yet, but we need to mention as a relevant area for the Western Indian? Oh, shoot, nice. Please go.
Yes, just to add, I think she's slightly touched on it. There's the element of marine renewable energy. Yeah, things to do with the floating solar panels and those kind of investments. Yes, if you get some investors within that space, I think we can talk.
Did you hear that? All the entrepreneurs in the room? Did you hear that? No? Okay, then next time you need to pay more attention, but that was very interesting. I will reach out. Okay, with that said, thank you so much for all the input in terms of which sectors that you find most interesting and where you see the big opportunities. With that said, I will now hand over to my co-moderator, Victoria, for the next topic area.
And I just realized that we've been a bit selfish and we've not asked for the people who are very kind to share their, experiences, their knowledge, make their comments, to ask their name, because to say their name and where they're coming from, because that is how we get to know who to chase in a room, right? May I know your name, sir? Yes, and where and which
Yeah, my name is John Kashangaki. I'm leading an organization called the Economic Development Investment Council, Pwani, Kenya. We're focusing on catalyzing investment in the coastal region.
Is it a private
It's
sector?
a non-profit, stakeholder-driven organization. Yeah.
Okay, is it private sector facing or just an ecosystem of actors? It's just broader.
We focus largely on private sector, working with both county government and private investors, really to package and structure investments for this region.
I say that because I thought that your intervention really lent itself to what we are talking about here today, that we have to think about the multiplicity of opportunity within the blue economy, that it is not just, aquaculture. It is actually it is thinking about how should we be organizing, matters relating to the property market within the coast so that it actually gives us the best of opportunity. Are we organizing for tourism, for conferences? What does that go to as far as policies are concerned, as far as investments are concerned? Who do we want to partner with us? But also, how do we aggregate these investment opportunities and be able to actually have it very coherently presented to investors? But we have to know who is willing to invest. As we are talking about renewables, it is more complicated to think about ocean renewables than it is like what we do distributed renewables energy, for example, right? But we need to know where the opportunity is and not just have a linear way of thinking. So thanks for sharing that. So if you want to know, about, what is the opportunity along the coastline, of Kenya, or at least the person to be able to speak to. But I just want to ask a question around what is a project that you have seen, what is an investment that you have witnessed, whether it is Kenya, Madagascar, wherever, that you've really seen it work at such scale and you want to see it replicated. It could be something that you read about, something that you're part of, whatever it is, but we just want to hear an inspiration.
Maybe just to say one thing, sorry, before you, I think what you said was very important. And as we deliberate, it's critical that we, and what he said, we understand a national strategy for blue economy, and then it helps us navigate down. I mean, we can all be working on our own individual investment. That's fine. I was embarrassed, actually. I realized I didn't have, very often we have, like if you hear tourism in Kenya, the target is 5 million visitors. Vision 2030 in Kenya articulated very well. There was the Lamu port, the investments in the Lamu port, investments in the Mombasa port. I just think, I know it's there, and maybe John can answer to that, the head of the Kenya investment, but that's something that will help drive even the infrastructure investments, the blue economy investments should all be linked. That's something we can pack, moderator. I was just saying that it's an important point that I think we need to keep in mind that will help us galvanize all the individual work that we're doing. And this is just for Kenya, but I think this is not just a Kenya-specific conference, so we can think more broadly as well. Thanks.
So what actually came out? Yes, go ahead.
No, I think he's spot on. I fully agree, because they're complementary to each other, right? And they also lower the risk. And obviously, if you have shipping, logistics, and industrialization becomes easier, right? If you have industrialization, now you have jobs, opportunities. Now property and urbanization becomes easier. So it's like it starts with the strategy, and then the rest becomes easier. I think I agree with that. Yeah, sorry.
And for the Kenyans in the room, when a project is announced in Lamu, we get to, or blue economy strategy is launched, we get to see that there is Mombasa port expansion, Lamu port development, aquaculture programs emphasis, marine spatial planning. So there is more opportunity than going to buy land near the place where the government is coming to invest. So we are very good as Kenyans, I'm Kenyan, in finding land near where the government is next investing or putting up a road. So let's think now that there's marine spatial planning and we can invest there. Let's hear you.
Good morning. My name is Evelyn. And as a person who has interacted with the Norwegian, as we understand, Norway is the biggest, largest fish processors. And they are creating revenue in billions. And I went to Norway last year, and there's something I saw, and I was like, do we have something like this in Kenya? The strategy, the insurance for the investors, those who want to do business in Kenya. And then they have the largest fish processing. From the ocean, everything is under chain. The government supports them. The government decides about the pricing, about the quality, about the tracing from the ocean to the market, to the final consumer. We can do this thing in here. We have enough land in the coastline. The government can decide to do this. And then the Norwegians, they are training people in all the sectors, be it into accounts, finance, operations, machine operations. So my concern was like, do we really have to import those kind of products all the way from Norway, and we can do that value addition in our country? We have the machines. The country can import the machines, and again, another thing is about market control. Do we have those local fishermen? How do they decide their prices? In Norway, it's decided by the fisheries, so that everything is under one umbrella. Thank you. I was so much impressed by that. And when I came back, we are pushing our company so that we can see whether we can at least now have something for a value addition in Kenya. We are based in JKI, yes.
And you are?
Evaling, finito.
Thank you.
The
Evelyn.
company, your startup?
Finito Investments Limited. The brand name is Finito Foods.
Good.
Yes,
Yeah. Always make some commercial marketing for it, you know? There's investors
Yes.
in the room, so
Yes,
always
if
be
you have gone
pitch.
to Radisson Blue, Hemingway, Serena, you have a meal on salmon on your plate. I'm the person who brings salmon.
Now we're talking. Great.
Great.
Thank you.
So I think the possibilities that really can be created when there is a right enabling environment. And I think really it's about also government. Government will be able to draw in the right investments and standards, because people buy investor grade at the end of the day. If something is well organized, well ordered, it attracts the money. Great. Just one more, and then I'll turn it to Jason for a summary, and then now we'll close.
Good morning. My name is Maria Fernandez. Mine is just maybe how I can get help. I'm a director at Kenya Chamber of Commerce, representing the PWDs. I'm one of them. My brother is a marine engineer, and sometimes he's out on the fishing trawls. And I was really shocked because he's in Kenya and he's working for a Tanzanian who is in Kenya fishing the yellowfin tuna. So when he told me about that, I'm like, what? A Kenyan working for Tanzania? Why can't we as Kenyans do the same thing? And I'll be more than happy to do that since I already have him in the front line. So maybe you can help me. I can try and see how we can work it here at home instead of him working for Tanzania. Sawa? Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And it goes really to what is it that investors look like at the end of the day? It means that you will need to have a business model that is scalable, that you need to demonstrate revenue traction, you need to demonstrate growth, you need to be able to show that there is actually customer validation, you need to be very clear about your source, supply chain, your raw material. All of those things need to come together. And in this room are people who are working on investor readiness to be able to get you to a place. But first of all is you must be an entrepreneur, right? And then investments will be able to follow. But within this conference are many of us who work at the different spaces of the financing continuum and investments readiness. So can we hear Jason's summary?
Oh, okay. Yes, so just to close down a little bit, I liked some of the input that came at the end, where you mentioned Norway, for example, because what that speaks to me is that we need closer collaboration. Government, private sector, lobby, consumer, export, pricing, right? Technology players, it's a plan here. And then everybody's playing the role within the plan. So now the question is, we need to know what the plan is, and we all need to know which role we should play to now move things forward. Do you agree with that? Exactly. So I think Norway is just one of many good examples. I think there are many players out there. Just as an example, Norway are very good on salmon. But if you ask around anything outside of salmon, it's not as good on expertise-wise, all right? So they really build on the species of certain type of salmon, okay? But there are also other countries that are fishing nations, right? That have a lot of expertise. So I think we could collaborate with many countries in terms of identifying what could be a Kenya model, Tanzania model, et cetera, right? And specifically also for the island states. Don't forget that some of them have very interesting proportion in terms of land versus ocean. I think it was mentioned yesterday that there are countries that have like several 1,000% more ocean space than land space. So I think even for the island states, which we should not forget, have even bigger opportunities of working much closer between government, policy, private sector, and industry, okay? Another summary in terms of opportunity areas, there was quite a lot from aquaculture, I think over there, a little bit over here. We had very interesting perspective around urbanization, coastline, looking more across counties rather than looking in terms of one subsectors, look at like they are actually compatible to each other, and there is by strengthening shipping or logistics, then you're also strengthening industrialization, then you're also building a case for urbanization, etc. We need to have more of this system thinking instead of tunnel vision. Is that a good way of summarizing that? Thank you. And then we were discussing energy production solutions. I think it was mainly around here on this side. But I think this is also something that we've seen a lot of in terms of opportunity areas. Question now is, how do we move to action? I think that Iran and the conflicts in the Middle East is definitely giving us a push. But I do think that there are much stronger arguments than war and conflict in the world. I think we all can see commercial, financial benefits of this. We can see environmental benefits, job creation benefits, etc. Right? So I think there's so much more that can drive this. The only thing I've been missing, to be honest, on this has been blue tourism. I personally think blue tourism is one of the most interesting spaces to develop, I just have to say. I think there are people here that do agree with me, so I'm not saying I'm the only one, but I just wanted to say that I think blue tourism could have been highlighted a lot. In terms of, I think that was the summary. I'm just double checking my notes here that I haven't forgotten anything. I think that was it. Victoria, back to you.
Thank you so much, Jordan. So, being a financial ourselves and being a player that actually expands the ecosystem of investor-ready businesses, we have seen what is possible to, support aquaculture businesses in Kenya. We have worked with different types of companies that are playing in value chains that are closest to the ocean, including even working, for example, with actually smallholder farmers in Zanzibar, as far as seaweed is concerned. And we've seen possibilities that can be created. But when I think about what inspiration for me comes through when we talk about blue economy, I think about what Benin has most recently done on underwater breakwater inspired by coral reefs. Anyone knows about that? Yeah? So Benin decided to say that, you know what, as in there is so much erosion that is actually happening along a 5-kilometer stretch, and that there is so much that was being lost in livelihoods, and fisheries was at stake, but more importantly is that there was going to be a risk as far as just the entirety of the asset, tourism and everything. And they went ahead and actually deployed finance, called in DFIs, and the outcome right now is a 5-kilometer submerged artificial reef. Then there is beach nourishment and associated coastal protection works along Benin's Atlantic coast, funding provided through public and development finance sources. It was not going to be bankable initially for the reason that it is really a public good facing investment, and it was going to be difficult to monetize. This really tells us that in order for us to think about resilience for our communities, reducing climate risk, protecting livelihoods, having biodiversity gains, there is need to be aggression. You don't sit and wait until the entirety of your resource is depleted just for the reason that you didn't do anything to protect it. And if actually the Benin government can be able to draw in an investor from the West to be able to put a breakaway, it can be able to think that private sector money can be able to come in through private-public partnerships. But also investors out here require that pipelines be built. So for anyone who is working around investments readiness, keep doing the harder work so that we can be able to have the EADBs, the AFDBs, the prime banks, the Kenya Commercial Bank, Equity, Standard Chartered, CFC Stanbic, ABSA, and whoever else is working across the continent to actually fund blue economy types of deals. For the investors who are in the sectors and are hoping for post-regulation to improve, keep pushing government. And let's ensure that things get better over time. Thanks for your time here. We have done very well. We actually are giving back to you too. Oh no!
No, you have exited by 2, but you have done very well. Yes.
You can see the text there. It says, please wrap up. So basically, that's where we're at now.
Yeah, but you have done well. Don't feel bad about it. So far, so good. Let's appreciate my moderators, please. Excellent. Oh, they're even encouraging each other. That was good. Yeah, you did well. You did well. Ladies and gentlemen, I know we have done a lot to extract as much information from you, but I would like us to do something because one of us present here is a doctor and he said, make sure people stretch. So please stand, stretch. It's important. Just don't knock the neighbor. Just in your own way. Do your thing. Do your thing. Do your thing. Excellent. Are you stretching? Oh, yeah. And by the way, I think yesterday, DJ, are you ready? Yesterday we learned how to run in Kenya because we broke the marathon. Maybe we can do one more today. Just one more. Are you ready, DJ? If it's ready, just give it now. If it's not, we can do it later. But thank you so much. Have you stretched? Oh, excellent, excellent. Ah, lovely, lovely. You remember it, eh? Okay, let me see. I don't know. In the house. You, sir, you're already doing it. Come. A round of applause to him. Thank you so much. Yeah. And who was the other lady who was doing it? Who was the other lady? Yeah. Come, I'll show you. Come. Well done. Yeah, it's you. Yesterday it was you. Yeah. You okay? She's like, no, I cannot do this. Okay, fine. You're going to show us, all right? Ready, everybody? Everybody run in position. All right, excellent. Some volume, please. What's happening there? Excellent. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, everybody, let's go. And then you look up a bit. Oh, make sure the back can stretch as well as you're doing that. And you bounce with it. And then up again, all right? And then 2 steps like 1, 2. Come on. 1, 2. And then you bounce a bit. Just bounce a bit because it's important, all right? And then a leg like that, all right? Make sure the blood is going where it's supposed to go, all right? Excellent. Are you ready? Okay. Now, final one. We should turn around, all right? Enjoying ourselves, all right? Enjoy yourself. Thank you so much. Asante Sana. Wow. There is a man you should have seen dancing. How are you, sir? The man in the red cap. How are you, sir? He's the best. Oh, my goodness. Hey. I love that. There's something happening in that corner, right? I think they had good breakfast. I want to turn our attentions to the screen for a quick video, and then we transition to the final panel of the day, and then we close. May we have the video, please?
What makes a sector investable? Is it rising demand, a supply gap, opportunity that is ready for investment, or is it just timing? Today, across East Africa, demand for fish is booming. Wild tilapia stocks are in sharp decline, and aquaculture is the only scalable solution. A well-run tilapia farm producing 4,000 metric tons per year can generate over $10 million in revenue with EBITDA margins above 20% and IRRs north of 15%. By 2030, aquaculture could deliver nearly 1 billion meals a year. It could support over 240,000 jobs. It would inject hundreds of millions of dollars into regional economies. In just 7 years, more than $100 million has flowed into the sector. Production has grown 6-fold, now surpassing 65,000 metric tons a year. Fish feed production has skyrocketed from barely 5,000 tons a year in 2016 to a projected 230,000 tons by 2026. And there are more opportunities for investments in other ancillary parts of the value chain. Existing and emerging farms will provide steady demand for fingerlings and feed. New processing hubs near major production zones can unlock value-added products like fillets and frozen fish, opening up new markets. It's no secret that aquaculture is now the fastest growing form of food production on Earth. And the same applies here in East Africa. Natural resources, surging demand, and an increasingly competitive ecosystem. Could there be a better time to participate? Early movers stand to gain the most. Now is the time to invest in the East African aquaculture opportunity. Reach out to Gatsby Africa to get started.
Thank you so much. Let's appreciate that moment, Asante Sana, for that. And we transition immediately now to the final panel. And this panel is about vision to investment action. That's a closing plenary for the day. And my moderator is Barbara Calvi from FSD, a specialist in blue finance. A round of applause to Barbara. Barbara, where were you? I was looking for you for a dance time anyway, but no, all good, so far so good. And maybe I will invite the panelists and then we shall proceed on. We have Mike Brokus, Regenerative Economy at Doen Foundation. We also have Dr. Suresh Yadav, Commonwealth Secretariat Senior Director of the Climate Change, Oceans and Energy Directorate. We also have Lillian Mwai, Country Manager, Trademark Africa in the house. Please, as a colleague, come forward. We also have Tito Okuko, Maersk Kenya, but I think you're the... John from Maersk. Welcome, John. Thank you so much for being right here as well from Maersk. And then we have the man himself, John Mwenda, who's in charge of Invest Kenya, the CEO. Welcome, sir, as well. Welcome to the floor. Karibu sana. Asante. Just one more time, checking whether Lillian is around from Trademark. I think we should be getting her soon. Great.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I need to use my technology because I need to reference a lot of notes that I've been taking over the past day and a half throughout these constructive discussions. I want to make sure that this closing session is as pragmatic as possible because the panelists have a pretty daunting task ahead of them of really making actionable recommendation and sort of turn their wish list into to-do lists, basically, that we can try and take forward during the rest of the conference ahead of us. Maybe, sorry. Let's start from Doen Foundation. So, sorry, do we have Doen Foundation? Just bear with me. Apologies, sorry. Let's start from Suresh. So, from a Commonwealth perspective, I mean, we've heard a lot in terms of some of the opportunities ahead of us on the blue economy, but we've also heard not really complaints, but sort of wishes for governance frameworks, policy and institutional action to get better. So from a Commonwealth perspective, maybe one question that hasn't been tackled yet is there's already also a lot of work that has been done into improving access, for example, to broader sustainable and climate finance, unlocking international funding opportunities. Do you see any sort of windows for tapping into all of the great work that has been done already in this sense and unlocking more sort of funding for ocean-based development? And what are the key actions that we need to think about from this perspective?
Thank you so much for this question. Just to say that there is plenty of opportunities which I saw in the previous panels, which offers the bird. And I see the market, particularly in Africa, as a very holistic market. If you look at the Africa Union 2063 vision, and if you look Africa being 1.5 billion people, and I call it as a young continent because the number of young people are going to the maximum in Africa. And also keeping the view of the fact that it's 1.5 billion, $3 trillion economy. And if you use the comparator that 1.5 billion India and China, 5 trillion, 20 trillion. So that gives you the gap and the potential opportunity. I take it as a potential opportunity. These numbers I'm quoting you because right now, doubling the economy from 3 trillion to 5, 6 trillion, then moving to 20 trillion, then further moving to 60, 70 trillion. So that's the potential of Africa. Now, within that potential, how do we see the blue economy? Blue economy in the Africa expected to be around 500 billion by 2030. That's a massive opportunity. Now, how do we capitalize that? One question you referred to the international finance, climate finance, that's working, how do we get into the ocean finance? So the world is facing itself a constraint in terms of the financing opportunity, the climate finance itself. So whether the choice is for the continent and for the country, whether you rely on already a choke pipeline of funding flowing from the multilateral institution, which they themselves suffer to deliver because sometimes the institutional capacity constraints in the countries, sometimes lack of the bankable projects, or where the countries can, where those institutions can invest. So there are problems for their side, there are problems from the country side. So how do we address that? And in that context, the Commonwealth leaders in 2015 experimented with an idea of a climate finance access hub. They could realize 10 years back that this is a problem, that even if there is a capital, there are not enough number of projects to be funded. And that's why they set up this climate finance access hub within the Commonwealth, which deploy the climate finance advisors within the Ministry of Environment, Finance, and also somewhere the Foreign Affairs Ministry to develop those bankable projects which can be funded by the multilateral institutions. And I must say that the multilateral institutions leverage the capital, maybe some of them 1 to 5 times, some of them 1 to 10, that's the maximum scale. But this climate finance access hub, through the human capital intermediations, I call it, that the money to the human capital and the human capital to money, we have been able to leverage almost 40 to 50 times. So this is a model, particularly a model where the world is calling for reforms in the international financial architecture because they think that this model has failed to deliver to the member countries. So I think we need to experiment similar kinds of models for the ocean financing, for the blue economy, where the countries who have the big coastal lines, who have the big jurisdictions over the oceans, they can develop those bankable projects, present to the investors on the regional basis, on the national basis, and make the investors look around those projects. The second thought I wanted to say that when we talk to a lot of financiers and bankers, particularly the private sector development finance space, they have a problem with the market size. Some of the players cannot issue the blue bonds less than the size of 100 million. And some of the countries, because of their lack of fiscal space, can't go for 100 million. They want 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. So how do you do that? So that is where the regional approach, that's why a single market approach is going to help in getting the private sector investment flowing. And that's important because the global wealth is around $550 trillion. Getting $2.3 trillion which Africa needs by 2030 is not a big problem. The problem is how do we approach to the investor? How do we make those projects get closer to the investors where they see value, they see return, and not that all of them are looking for very high returns like hedge funds. Many of them are very happy even if they are able to hedge the cost of inflation plus 1% in terms of impact investment. So this is where I see the opportunity. One of my colleagues, Daniel, is here. He works on the Blue Bond Issuance Toolkit. Commonwealth has been working and empowering the member countries to be ready for the Blue Bond Issuance. He'll be very happy to brief you all if you need any point of time, any such guidance from the Commonwealth Secretariat. So thank you for this, and over to you, Margaret.
Great, thank you very much. And we had Beatrice yesterday on another panel. I had the pleasure of moderating from the Blue Bond Accelerator, so great partners in developing that toolkit, which I'll come back to actually in my next question to you. But now maybe over to John from Maersk. We've heard a lot on the importance of sort of creating corridors, having them positioned as investment magnets to some extent, but also some of the challenges that we are experiencing in terms of sort of moving from strategy to implementation when it comes to supporting port infrastructure investment, enhancing PPP mechanisms, but also there's been a lot of focus during the discussions around the need to modernize marine curricula, including some technology innovation elements. So clearly all of those are top priorities, but if you were to sequence them and sort of really translate them into actionable items, what would be really your top list and your ideal sequence?
First of all, thank you, Barbara, for moderating, and thanks for the opportunity to join you today. I'm a little bit of a late innings substitution for our managing director for East Africa, Tito, whose name you've heard. I'm John Godfrey. I'm actually coming in from Copenhagen. I'm the chief group representative for Africa for AP Moller. It's a really good question, and I think where I would start is by echoing what my colleagues Naveed and Oliver mentioned yesterday, which is Africa really doesn't have a demand problem or necessarily a problem attracting investment. It has a friction point problem, and it has a predictability problem. So the cargo and the growth for shipping and logistics, the demand is there, and the cost and unpredictability of moving cargoes, I think, is really what holds those returns on investment back. So my wish list, as you put it, for what we would ideally do would be the following three things. First, increasing gateway capacity, and I'm speaking here specifically of Mombasa, to keep this sort of centered on the geography we're in. Second, improving the back of port ecosystem and the corridors. And third would be the green transition. And just a few quick words on each of those. So gateway capacity really is sort of the gating, forgive the pun, factor, in the sense that without improving that, everything else is difficult or impossible. So in order to address surges in volumes, you have to increase the capacity at the port. As was mentioned yesterday, Mombasa hit 2.11 million TEUs in capacity in 2025, and that's its designed peak capacity. So there isn't any further room for growth there. There's about 1.4 million TEUs in anticipated near-term build, but already the demand is outrunning that anticipated additional capacity. And as one example of that, transit cargo alone, so cargoes that came into Mombasa and went into primarily the northern corridor, grew by almost 20% last year alone, which is a significant increase. So without increasing that gateway capacity, very difficult to scale anything else. The second piece is arguably the most important, and it also, in a happy coincidence, happens to be the lowest cost, which doesn't always happen. And that's the corridors and the connective tissue. So that back of port ecosystem that enables cargoes to move to and from the port turns out to be a really important part of the equation and a place where there's possibility to make significant improvements at relatively low cost. So we're talking here about things like evacuating cargoes, as we say in the industry, that's moving cargoes from the port to somewhere else. By rail, it's inland container depots, it's the standard gauge railway, it's the ICD at Navasha and cold chain storage and that whole network of things that has to work more or less seamlessly to enable ports to work well. And then there's the soft layer that goes with all those hard assets. And by that, I mean customs digitization, single window portals, 24/7 borders. And all of that is designed to address what is a fundamental problem, not just at Mombasa, but at other ports. And that is that cargo containers clear the ports in a matter of hours, and then they sit for days at border crossings or on the way to getting to border crossings. And I think the way that you address that really becomes quite determinative in the overall efficiency of the system and of the port. Those changes are cheaper than infrastructure investments, and they also pay back faster in terms of returns, and they have a significant impact on what investors really care about, which we talked about a lot over the last 2 days, and that's predictability and a sure bet, if you will. And so if you're looking for ways to attract capital, I would argue that that's a significant area to focus. The last one, which may be a little bit controversial and not as intuitively obvious, I would argue it's quite important, and I think my colleagues would too, not everyone would share that view, is actually the green transition. And not for the environmental reasons, which are important, and our company very much believes in those, but for the commercial and resilience related reasons that go with that. So this is things like shore power, port electrification, an electric truck fleet to actually move containers. Carbon is already being priced into shipping costs at the EU border, and that trend is likely to continue in other geographies around the world. So that's a cost that needs to get accounted for in how we approach development going forward. We're already moving on this as a company in terms of having an MOU to do CAPEX-free or CAPEX-free, excuse me, electric truck movements starting inside Mombasa Port. We're also now pioneering the use of containers to move cut flowers rather than moving them by air out of Kenya, which reduces the carbon footprint of that commercial activity by 85%. That's quite significant. And we're also looking at other measures as well. Just a final word on the resilience piece, because in light of the Strait of Hormuz and everything that we've all been talking about in terms of disruptions that have flowed from that conflict, I think that I would highlight that global oil demand has decreased from about 102 million barrels per day in February by almost 7 million barrels per day as of today. That's pretty significant, and I think it reflects the fact that companies and countries around the world have had to adjust how they do business because of the shocks to the system generated by the crisis with Iran. That fuel type optionality for vessels and also for onshore facilities, I think really is how you get dividends paid in the form of greater resilience. So reliance on single sources of fuel leaves you more exposed. Things like electrification of ports and vessel alternative fuels gives you greater flexibility going forward. And I think in a world where we certainly have seen no shortage of geopolitical challenges over the last couple of years, that's a significant factor as well. The binding constraint on all of that, the sort of greening process, including green corridors, I would argue is not the technology, which has actually become quite mature in a number of ways. It's building the ecosystem around that technology application, and particularly the regulatory piece that incentivizes investors and companies to spend the money to actually make those things reality.
Thank you so much for those contributions. And I think clearly shipping and the concept of green corridors is really where the blue economy piece really marries into the broader green finance piece in a very synergetic way for positive outcomes. I'll get back, though, to the point on green transition to ask you more about that in the context of potential blue bond structures. But maybe moving on to you, John, second John, from Invest Kenya's perspective. So we had a lot of interesting discussions around high potential sectors within the sustainable blue economies. Of course, we spoke a lot about aquaculture, mariculture potential as well. In the ocean, we talked about the seaweed value chain, the potential for biostimulants, and ways of making captive fishing more efficient by enhancing the cold value chain, and also focusing on youth and women employment. Clearly, there's and of course, not to forget blue carbon related opportunities. So there's a lot on the table. How do we go about navigating that? And do you have a particular also sequencing to suggest with regards of any of those particular activities?
Well, thank you. First of all, I would like to say it's been really interesting sitting and listening to different perspectives because investors always are looking for where capital generates the adequate return and deals that really sustain both shareholder wealth and, you know, people are looking at where to play. And I am a firm believer that capital is a coward. It's only not a coward where, you know, the risk and reward balance go hand in hand. And listening to my colleague, he's not my colleague really, but he's still my colleague, John from Mask, and the comments he's made, and also from, you know, the Pan-African perspective that my fellow participant shared, I think most of the sectors have actually been very well articulated. But I think I have got a couple of points which would either be a bit different in perspective. I think the verbiage and the narrative is sufficient. I think everybody understands what the sectors are. But I think a couple of points come to bear because we meet investors every day, and every public policy person who's here or should have been here, I think there are 2 or 3 points that are really poignant for me. The first one is we will always have the hue and cry of project quality. And project quality, I think, for an emerging sector like the maritime sector, a blue economy sector, I think folks may consider wanting to come together to explore a project preparation facility for a start, because the sort of scale we continue to see is very limited. The project scope is possibly too little to crowd in sufficient capital. And when we do the project preparation at whatever scale private sector does, the value chains are in a singular country, for example. We may need to do value chains that are regional so that we can have scale. My personal view is we need to really do project preparation facilities that can be able to break down the different sector projects that exist. And we may not have to have 20 projects, we may just have 5 or 3 at scale and then pulls everything together. And coupled with a project preparation facility could be some de-risking instruments. And there are very many people who can do that. And maybe when the project is structured right, capital comes easily, and then public sector can possibly de-risk. So then my second point is about, I think there was a very good question or a contribution in the earlier Q&A where someone said sometimes the regulatory environment is slow to catch up with the transitions that the sector is bringing to bear. And if you are to pivot that to what's happening in the technology space today, for example, AI changes faster than we can all sit and conclude a conversation here, yet businesses are able to adapt and plan aggressively more than they could. I really think in the regulatory aspect that unlocks investments in this space, there is work to be done. And that I think sits in the public realm of things, because we cannot complain that policies are not agile enough to accommodate the emerging sectoral opportunity. I like the challenge that John brought to bear on, you know, the energy transition. For example, if you want to make green to decarbonize, Kenya is 93% renewable energy. So we are ready for it, but even as we transition into marine energy, you know what I mean? But is it that the regulation is not there, or the projects are not conceptualized well so that capital can be crowded in? I think then with that, I will then put my final point is, when all this is happening, as we look at logistics, investment in ports, and the demand that is continuing to outstrip supply for the logistics investments that are there, I think really we must put ourselves in the shoes of investors in terms of the ease of doing business. It is not fair for our dwell time for ships to be multiples of days, to offload cargo to take X number of days longer, you know, for technology which should be leading that to be, you know, latent, if there's a terminology like that. So I believe that bucket presents both the opportunities that come to bear, and I think as an investment promotion where we sit working with private sector is to say, these are pure private sector opportunities that are bankable, because private sector raises up their hands and say, we need equity, we need debt, and I don't think there's shortage of money for debt or equity play. Issue is, do we have scale of projects that can be able to then transform, and then ensuring we have regulatory clarity and really a conducive ease of doing business environment, I think will really make then everything come together. I could go on and on, but that's just how I see it from where I sit.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It really helps again frame the issue and sort of also come up with solutions that try and tackle a little bit that regulatory uncertainty, but also it speaks to some of the needs around embedding technology, innovation, and a more agile environment in any form of intervention and partnership to advance the blue economy. So Suresh, getting back to you, of course you spoke about the importance of aggregation, which is a message that has come out, I think, loud and clear from basically all of the discussions we've been having during the forum. You also pointed towards the toolkits that you've been developing with the Blue Bond Accelerator around the potential use of these instruments in the countries you represent. So one additional question for you is, when we speak about frameworks, guidelines for labeled financing instruments, there's always a little bit of a trade-off between not wanting to have them too granular and too many, because then you run into the risk of having multiple different tiny little details that issuers and organizations need to comply with, but at the same time you want them to be sufficiently tailored to be fit for purpose for the use within those countries by those corporate players. So maybe can you give us a little bit more color in terms of how you have approached this particular toolkit exercise and how have you tried to strike that balance, and especially how so far since publishing that late last year you've seen traction in terms of using that toolkit to drive implementation?
Thank you so much. Let me say that I fully agree with John that the regulatory challenges and policy making is probably one of the difficult tasks ever in the history in the life of any public policy maker working. One, because the technology is changing so fast, so is the demand from the investors, from the public and others. And other is also because we want everything to happen with the scale and the speed. And the governments are never wired to respond with that scale and the speed. So that's a mismatch happening between the demand and supply from the government side. And that's puts a challenge. How do you make those policy making and the policies agile and flexible and futuristic in nature? Why you should be going to change the policy every then and now, particularly when the public policy making requires in many of the countries very high level of approval, in some of the cases parliamentary approval. So that is where a new thinking, a new design is required. And how do we approach in the Commonwealth Secretariat? What is our model? So let me come back to that one. I mentioned briefly about the Blue Bond Toolkit and related exercises which we are doing. But in general, our model has been that if there are any emerging issues, bring out a common legislative framework, what we call as a model law. You bring out a model law, put all the positions, all the possibilities, various options A and B together to the member countries, and let them decide what is the best for them, which situation is best for them. So similarly on the Blue Bond Toolkit, we are carrying out a lot of webinar capacity building for the member countries, empowering the countries to see that where and how they can do it. So we are enabling them. We cannot do for them, because ultimately the country choice what direction, what way they want to go it, but we are enabling them, we are empowering them. Similar kind of things we keep doing for the climate finance. We keep doing a lot of write-off and the workshop with the member countries to empower them to use your existing ecosystem. We want the countries to see themselves as a one who are leading the process, who are the one who are able to get to the destinations, and that will ultimately give the multiplier effect. We don't want to just rely on what the international financial architecture, which is there, which is not, as many people say, fit for the purpose. And I do agree also, because I've been on the board of many of the multilateral institutions. So given that in the background, what is the option? This is the best option, that what you have as a country, what you have as a region, how do you make the best of use of it by using this thing? And that's where these model laws, that's where the Blue Bond Toolkit, which I talked about, that's where the BBNJ work, which we are doing in the member countries, enabling the countries to not only sign the agreement, but use it to their advantage and take those opportunities to the investors, take those opportunities to the multilateral institutions. So that's one directional effort by the Commonwealth Secretariat to see that we are able to bring the capital and projects together, and that empowers and benefits our member countries, which many of them, 49 of the 56 member states, are the coastal states. So that is where our work is focused, and Commonwealth is a very strong work in the area of ocean, energy, and the environment. So within the Secretariat, we are also trying to blend this work together and see that how ocean and climate nexus can work together and deliver a multiplier effect to our member countries. Over to you, Barbara.
That's a very interesting point, and it makes me think about all of our sort of exchanges around skills development, capacity building. Whenever we speak, especially with financial institutions, around blue finance and nature finance more broadly, one of the first things they usually ask us is, well, can we build on all of the work we've already done on climate, on green finance? Can we try and not reinvent the wheel completely? How can we make it additional to all of the expertise, all of the internal capabilities and capacity that we've been building over the past few years with a focus on climate? So that's a very good point to take away. John from Maersk, coming back to you, and again touching on the topic of blue bonds. So yesterday we heard again on the panel about this innovative concept of the Go Blue Green Bond for Kenya. It's really interconnected to the Green Corridor projects, and clearly a lot of that sort of initiative focuses around port enhancements, logistics, facilitating maritime transportation, but at the same time making sure that there's a pool of money that also goes back to conservation and restoration of the ecosystems. There is clearly a big opportunity for shipping lines and logistics companies to take an active role in this type of structures, but what is the most effective, viable mechanism for this to happen? Is this potentially, and I'm just throwing out options there, but in the form of a pooled facility, user-based type of fees, in-kind contributions? From what your perspective, what could be the most effective mechanism to partner on this type of mechanism?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I would start by saying that I think from the perspective of my company, green corridors are arguably the most practical way to concentrate a number of factors around this effort: demand, fuel supply, port infrastructure, and policy support on specific trade lanes, so that zero emission shipping and logistics can move from pilot projects to commercial scale. So that was a mouthful. What I would say about that is that there are a number of companies, not many, who have sort of taken a leading role in this effort. Maersk happens to be one of those. We are very strongly committed to this, both in terms of alternative fuels, but also on the land side in terms of electrification and other measures to reduce carbon footprint. And I think the single biggest determinant of whether this is successful or not, including in the context you just mentioned about blue bonds, is whether there is good, clear regulation. And so not often that you hear a private company talking about regulation, but in this case, I think it's particularly relevant. Good, clear regulation that is consistently enforced. And that can be quite challenging in some environments. But I think what it does is level the playing field and level the expectations among actors who are in these sectors, so that there's a clear understanding of what we're trying to do, and that everyone has to sort of, frankly, pay their share, because there is cost that goes with this. And one of the things that can be quite difficult is getting customers to accept that. There's a very, very small number of them who are willing to do this for reasons of principle, but really it has to be a regulation-driven approach that then applies to the market.
Thank you very much. And maybe on that point, John, back to you. Again, it's a very important aspect that John has raised around also customers to understand. So in many cases, in your seat, you need to sort of package the whole messaging around investing in the blue economy to investors, and then making sure that whatever they sort of prioritize in terms of where they put the money also resonates with the eventually the customer base of some of the companies in those sectors. And so this is how you go about creating like a whole ecosystem and sort of trying to fuel the supply of that blue project pipeline, but at the same time fostering the demand for the ultimate product. So after you've heard all of the messages coming out of this forum, what are the main potential changes you would make to how you've been sort of packaging the blue economy investment proposal? I know it's still very early and we still have a few days of discussions ahead, but have there been any particularly inspiring points that you want to go away and integrate into your proposition?
So this will sound perhaps a bit like an evasion. It really is not intended to be. I think we've actually been quite forward-leaning as a company already, and particularly in Kenya's space. So the work that we've done, for example, in cold chain storage solutions, but also importantly, as I mentioned, to containerize rather than ship by air cargo cut flowers, which is a really significant revenue generator for the Kenyan economy. And the fact that that is a 85% reduction in carbon emissions is really quite extraordinary. And that business, we've already moved, I think, 100 containers this year. We predicted about a quarter of that volume. So that's really, clearly, there's demand for that business going forward. And I think we're quite excited about this new opportunity that we have. A little bit limited in how much I can say at this point about specifics, but it's basically looking to use electric trucks to do shunting at Mombasa Port, which again reduces carbon footprint. So we're actively looking in this space for opportunities. The one thing I would say that is easy to say and hard to do, and really the colleagues with whom I work deserve a lot of credit for their ability to do this, is it all has to be commercially viable at the end of the day. Unless you're talking about massive government subsidies, which I don't think is in the offing, it has to be commercially viable. And that is quite difficult to do. It requires very efficient and consistently efficient operations to make it a reality. And I think that's something where a company like Maersk that really has a ruthless focus on process management has a bit of a competitive advantage.
Thank you so much. And John, from an Invest Kenya perspective, another thing we've been hearing is about the importance of sort of value chain integration across most of the blue economy sectors. So how do we really go about actioning that, even in cases where, for example, pools of demand may be concentrated into some of the segments of those value chains? How do we go about creating that that integration so that sort of there's no excessive concentration of capital only in those segments, and we really promote sort of the retention of the value addition domestically?
Well, value chains, regional value chains specifically take a bit of time to come to bear. But the good thing is where there is initial liftoff, even though or even if the value chain is concentrated in a certain location or a country, could provide the proof for the initial pilot, where then scalability comes to play shortly thereafter. But I think for the many subsectors that exist in the blue economy, I think there is sufficient expertise and knowledge in multiple sectors, stakeholders, from the maritime logistics, like my colleague from Mask here, from folks in the aquaculture and fisheries, etc., to begin to build this up initially so that it can be able to take off, and it not happen overnight. But I think projects that are bankable and that are scalable will be regional in nature, but it's only natural that they will start off somewhere. So it could be important. I like that John has given us a deal here to go home with. He may not be at liberty to say that small transaction that starts in Kenya at the port of Mombasa, once it matures, it can very quickly then mutate into a regional project, and hence the need to look at the regional aspects of all value chains that are in play across this ecosystem. So I think finally the nexus between what we said is the ocean and the climate, I think the opportunities will be infinite in my view. And I think this sector really presents a very, very, very elaborate opportunity for to take advantage of. And for us here is to see whether in our investment deal book or a project catalog that we have, we can continue then begin to see a scale up and a build up of quality projects for this sector.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We have very few minutes left, so maybe I'll try to recap some of the key aspects that we have covered, and then see whether there's any pressing questions from the public, or I'll ask a last one myself. But we've talked about the need to sort of future-proof policies and framework to empower countries, but also sort of regional types of organizations in terms of sort of customizing some of these frameworks to their specific needs, and take a very proactive role in terms of exploring some of the financing mechanisms and opportunities that exist to really channel capital towards the right opportunities. We've heard once again about the need for project quality and the role that some of the development partners, investment councils and associations play in terms of supporting project preparation and bringing projects to bankability state and scale. We heard about the importance of agile regulation, but also for it to be consistently enforced, and predictability, especially in maritime transportation. And then sort of further exploring the nexus between ocean strategies and existing climate finance, especially from a talent development perspective. So I'm looking at, oh, sorry, I need to.
There's already some questions up there, I think on your screen as well.
Sorry, I'm not.
Right here, right here, right here. Right here,
sorry.
right here. Yes, yes.
Pretty straightforward. So let me start with the first one. So one key policy ask, can we potentially extend the green bond tax incentives? They exist, by the way, in Kenya, and FSD Africa has been part of sort of the consultations to put that framework in place. Can we apply this to blue bonds and other sustainability instruments? What are other enabling policies to unlock the capital? Maybe I'll just start answering that question. So especially in the context of the Go Blue Green Bond that we are helping to develop, yes, those incentives are potentially applied. So it's really about linking some of the underlying blue projects to the relevant kind of green framework in terms of everything that concerns, for example, waste management, water efficiency and management. All those activities still belong to the broader concept of green finance. So in most cases, those incentive mechanisms would be transferable. But happy for the speakers to comment a little bit more and also on other potential enabling policies, even though we've covered that a little bit.
Can I just wanted this very fundamental question, and I just want to respond as a former tax person and a policymaker that it's ultimately choice of the country that what is your country situation, whether you are a large ocean estate where you want to promote the blue bonds or any other bonds. So definitely it's the policymaker, tax policymaker choice who needs to link it up the situation, and it's really much possible based on the country tax policymakers and the country situation, I would say.
Thank you. Just skimming quickly through the questions. Do African governments have investment advisory infrastructure to help entrepreneurs? We heard earlier in the first co-design session from KDC about some of the project preparation support that they provide. We know the East African Development Bank also has some form of support. I think those mechanisms are actually there. Yeah, happy for anyone to comment further. But otherwise, maybe moving to a more specific question. We know Mombasa port is congested, but what is the upside if there is investment? What does it bring to the economy and the people of Kenya? Let me maybe try and rephrase the question, because a lot of this ground has been covered, and maybe close by bringing up another dimension, which is the social one. The conference is about promoting investment in the blue economy in a way that is inclusive, that promotes livelihood. I've mentioned earlier the discussions we've heard, especially in the deal room, around facilitation of youth and women employment. But if you need to spend one more word, again, on the social and inclusivity aspect of some of the measures you've been advocating for, what would that be, and how your respective areas of competence in particular can help ensure this social benefit of the blue economy projects?
No, thank you very much for asking this social inclusion question, and that's very part of the work which we do in the Commonwealth Secretariat, where the gender issue, the young people issues are very critical and very important for us. And in fact, our strategy plan itself talks about the youth mainstreaming and gender mainstreaming in any of the work which we do. We run climate youth network. We also use under the ocean, there is a youth network. Under the energy, there is a youth network. And so is the case that we are working to mainstream the gender and data into many of the national strategic member governments are working. So I think it's very important, because if we really want to future-proof anything, I think we cannot future-proof those policies, regulations, and the work without mainstreaming the young people, because young people have more stake in the planet and the future than any one of us here in the room. So we cannot go, the world cannot go without them. So social inclusion is absolutely fundamentally important for us.
I think I want to align myself with his comments, because the social equity aspect is there. It's actually not for Kenya. The port and investments in the port will continue to happen, and they will benefit not only Kenya, but the region as a whole. And it's a critical enabler to investments across multiple sectors. So it's an important node, and not only the Port of Mombasa, Port of Lamu, and other regional ports will all have a really significant role to play in the blue economy ecosystem for the continent as well. Thank you.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. I think John hit it right on the head. The investment in the port does a couple of things that I think have enormous impact for Kenya, but also the broader region that is served by the Mombasa port. And as my colleague Oliver mentioned yesterday, that's a region of about 100 million people, so significant. Investment in the port creates jobs in the form of the construction and other work that goes into developing that infrastructure. But more importantly, it creates the throughput capacity that enables economic and trade growth, which allows Kenya to fully realize its economic potential. And my background before coming to work for Maersk happens to have been in diplomacy. I was a U.S. diplomat for a number of years. And one of the things I saw very clearly serving in interesting places around the world, some of them quite challenging, was the critical importance of employment, not just for the immediate economic benefit to individual families, but as a way for individuals to have a sense of dignity and worth and to live fulfilling lives. And I think that's really, when we talk about social benefit of economic activity, that should be an important benchmark. And I think that the kind of investment that we're talking about, if done properly, really does enable that sort of really lofty goal to be achieved.
Couldn't agree more. And one of the roles we play as development partners is also to support companies to actually measure that level of impact and convey that to investors to further incentivize sort of putting their capital into this project. So I think we're largely over time. Sorry for that, but extremely insightful discussion. And please join me in thanking our panelists.
Thank you so much. And panelists, we also invite you for a quick photo together. Then we can wrap this up. That was the closing plenary from Vision to Investment Action. All right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. And if you don't mind, I just want to appreciate very quickly some of the countries represented here. So tech team, if you don't mind, you could put that slide up right now. If you can scan that QR code, we just want to appreciate some of the countries and nations represented here. You could scan that. Let's go. Let's go. If you don't mind, just type in your country, whichever the country you're coming from. We'd appreciate just to know that even as we're getting ready for the final closing by the PS. So just check it out. You can do that. You can just ensure that you type your country. I'm only seeing Kenya. There are only Kenyans here. Okay, just checking, especially the ones who are in the house. Oh, at least I've seen we have the UK. Thank you. Any other country? We just wanted to appreciate all the UK persons. Canada is represented, Sweden as well. Oman is also represented. There's another country called Kenya Go Blue. We appreciate you. Migigo Island. Now who is that? I knew we never miss that, you know. Germany and Mauritius as well. Wow, this is very good. South Africa is in the house. South Africa, we're just treading carefully. Now, what happened in the World Cup? I'll check, but we'll talk later. We'll talk later. Thank you so much. Nigeria is in the house. Netherlands, Norway, and Sweden as well. Indonesia, Ghana, Botswana. Wow, this is really good. Okay. Italy as well. Just checking else. KJet. Which country is KJet? Just checking which country. KJet is a country with initials. That is someone from Singapore. Singapore is important to us as Kenyans. Then we also have India represented. Thank you so much. All these countries. Yeah, I think the rest are the rest, right? I've not missed any other. I'm trying to see whether I've missed any other. Okay. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, look at it now. This is the hour where we are going to finally have the final closing. And just to appreciate all of you as well for being patient and being here with us. This is more like a closing of a new start, because tomorrow now we start also another sessions and other levels of conversations. So to do this, allow me to invite our PS, Blue Economy, Betsy Njagi, to kindly come over and give her remarks on behalf as well of the CS, Honorable Hassan Ali Njo. Welcome, Madam PS, to close for us. A round of applause to her, please, as she comes. Welcome.
Good afternoon once again. So as our able MC has mentioned, all protocols observed, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm here on behalf of our Cabinet Secretary, His Excellency Hassan Ali Joho, and I'm here to read his closing remarks. So I'll do exactly that. Distinguished delegates, business leaders, investors, development partners, innovators, ladies and gentlemen, as we bring this business forum to a close, allow me to express my sincere appreciation to each one of you for your participation, insights, and commitment to advancing Africa's blue economy. Over the last 2 days, we have had a rich and forward-looking discussions on investments, finance, technology, maritime development, value chains, innovations, and partnership. Most important, we have demonstrated that the blue economy and maritime affairs is no longer a future opportunity. It is a present economic frontier with immense potential to drive growth, create jobs, trade, and improve livelihoods across Kenya and Africa. What has also emerged clearly from our discussion is that Africa possesses the natural resources, the entrepreneur talent, which has been demonstrated by the various panelists, and also in the deal rooms, the innovation capacity and the market opportunities required to build a global competitive ocean economy. The challenge before us is not lack of opportunity. The challenge is mobilizing investment at the scale and speed required to unlock that opportunity. We have heard from investors seeking bankable projects, from business ready to expand, from innovators developing transformation solutions, and from development partners willing to support catalytic initiatives. This presents a powerful opportunity for collaborations, and governments alone cannot unlock the full potential of blue economy and maritime affairs. Equally, the private sector cannot succeed without enabling policies, strategic infrastructure, and strong partnership. As Kenya, we remain committed to creating an enabling environment for investment and enterprise development across fisheries, aquaculture, maritime transport, ports and logistics, coastal tourism, the blue technology, and other emerging sectors. We believe that sustainable economic growth and responsible ocean stewardship must go hand in hand. The true measure of success for this forum will not be the quality of our conversation, but the partnerships formed, the projects financed, the enterprises scaled, and the jobs created as a result of the engagements we have had here in Mombasa. To our investors, Africa's blue economy is open for business. My brother, the CEO for Kenya Investors, said it so. Africa and Kenya is open for business. To our entrepreneurs and innovators, continue building the solutions that will define the future of this sector. To our development partners, your support remains critical in helping de-risk investments and accelerate sustainable growth. And to all the delegates, I invite you to carry forward the momentum created here today and work together to unlock the full potential of our blue economy. And I therefore leave this forum with a simple call to action. Let us move from dialogue to deal making. Let us move from ideas to implementation. Let us move from identifying opportunities to investing in them. On behalf of the government of Kenya, I thank you all for your participation and contribution to this important forum. I wish you productive engagements during the 11th Our Ocean Conference and a pleasant stay in Kenya and Mombasa. Thank you very much. Asanteni sana. Karibuni Mombasa. Enjoy the coastal cuisine and the Swahili hospitality of our Mombasa people. So that was the speech from our able CS, and he would have loved to be here, but he sends his greetings and regards, and is looking forward to hosting you on the opening ceremony on the 17th at Pride in Flamingo, and of course the closing ceremony on the 18th on the same venue. So before I close, all this could not be possible without various stakeholders within government. For the guests here today, the government of Kenya, we have two arms of government. There's the national government and the county government. And on behalf of the county governments, the Council of Governors, I want to invite my brother just to say a word before we close it officially. Mr. Kizito, karibu sana.
Thank you, PS, for the great honor. And I must first of all also acknowledge that Madam PS is a proud daughter of the county governments, having served before her current station as an officer in the county government. And thank you so much for. I have sat here for the last 2 days, and I must admit that we have had very robust, very honest, very forward-looking conversations about the future of the ocean, of our oceans, our economy, and our people. Allow me in a few minutes that I've been given just to reflect on a couple of things that I have listened to, and we all acknowledge a few of the pain points that need to be adjusted for us to move forward. The blue economy and the ocean economy as a whole, mostly we resort to looking at the waters, the big waters. But the activities around that are inherently intertwined with the upstream conversation, with issues of livelihood. I heard, for example, somebody dealing with waste. Where does the waste come from? It's not coming from the coastline. It's way from the upstream of the waters that we have. So whatever we do, there is an inherent connection between upstream activities and what happens along the coastline. So the private sector has also raised a couple of issues. The simplicity of the regulatory environment, the multiplicity of licenses and tax regime. But increasingly, just a little history, you will appreciate where we have come from. 2013, we got a new constitution as a country, and we are still in the transition phase, by the way. Though the formal transition ended, but we still have to transition into this new phase. An appreciation that the county governments now exist. We have a multi-layer government system. The county governments have been given the power by the Constitution to do trade development and regulation. The county governments have the planning authority, and therefore they do spatial planning. They have integrated development plans that we must therefore use as mechanisms of localizing all the national intentions that we have. So as we move forward, we would really want the private sector included, and more so the development partners. I had CEDA here, I had GIZ, I had these institutions, especially the development partners, come and help us restructure, reconfigure, align the policies, align the regulations, so that the fit expected by the private sector is seamless. Sometimes we ignore that and we say, let's just move in. Then now you find a county slapping you with a bill to pay. It is in law. It's in their law. KFS is slapping you with a bill. It is in their law. How do we then make sure that we align all this? That might not be the primary intention of MASK, for example, but the CEDAs, the GIZs, and all that look at the governance frameworks and are able to align, come through for us as county governments. So in the recent past, we have done a lot. For example, we are right now doing the county aggregation and industrial parks. 38 counties are on course for implementation of this county aggregation and industrial parks. The issues of aggregation, I heard about it. All the county governments have identified the value chains that they want to promote. Can you come through and help, therefore, that we guide the county government sufficiently on how to then utilize the opportunity that they are investing with a clear mind of the private sector so that we invest appropriately to onboard the private sector in this. The tourism sector, Madam PS, we have 29 national reserves. Only 4 or 5 of them are active. Masai Mara, Baringo, Isiolo, Samburu, and maybe one other. We have 29. The others were handed over in statute to the county governments without a framework of how to operationalize them. So they haven't been operationalized. How do we then help operationalize some of these opportunities that we have? So in conclusion, I want to say and commit that the county governments are no longer being seen as centers of public expenditure, but catalysts of the investment expected so that they can catalyze the private sector engagement and improvement of livelihoods. I thank you, PS, for this opportunity and look forward to further engagement with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kizito. For our guests, I encourage you, don't just stay within Mombasa County. There's a lot to see in all the 47 counties in Kenya. And the man to present that opportunity from a touristic perspective, investment perspective, business perspective, youth leadership, this is the man. And he has a very amazing lady behind him called Barbara, who can also make it happen. So as he said, Kenya is endowed with a lot of opportunities. And the county government, all the 47 county governments, and the governors, and the leadership, they have done a very good job, not only to offer public service, but to create opportunities in various spheres of life. So with those many remarks, thank you very much. I wish you a pleasant stay, and looking forward to seeing you on the 17th. For some of us, even tomorrow we are working, but I know some of you will be relaxing. So 17th, see you at Pride in Flamingo for the official opening of the Ocean Conference. Asanteni.
Thank you so much, Madam PS. Yes? Oh yeah, I'm being told something here that the words must be said from the council. I know, I just whispered that.
Sorry, the Business and Investment Forum, it's officially closed.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, they were waiting to clap for that moment. Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen,